Welcome to Success Talks, an exclusive podcast for our Yellow Magazine contributors. Success Talks features life-enhancing interviews with real people in professional roles and small businesses, providing our listeners tools, insights, and thought leadership to help restore life balance and redefine success. Each interview is varied and includes key lessons designed to help you focus your mind, improve productivity, and enable freedom and fulfillment. Enjoy today's episode. Hi everyone, welcome back for another book review with Sharon Leigh. This month, we are reviewing The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Sharon, introduce yourself.
Hi, Sharon. Sharon Leigh here again, and have another good book to tell you all about. And myself, I'm a neurodivergent behavioral scientist, and amongst other things,
A genius.
Creative. I'm an artist, polymath, a number of different things that look at my LinkedIn webpage if you want to know more. Yeah. So today we're talking about this book. And again, it's like, you can see all the tabs in it. And I marked this one also. And in the beginning of it, it's funny because it's in 3 parts. And in the first part of it, I was like, no, in the margins. And then I'm doing it as I'm laughing at myself, because it's like, that's not me. I don't suffer from that. And it's like, and the little voice in the back of my head is like, oh yeah, you do. And what about this, So what the subtitle, is it the undertitle, that it says break through your blocks and win your inner creative battles. Now, some people don't like, in the reviews, people don't like, well, I don't like the war metaphors, why does everything have to be in a war metaphor, but it fits.
I agree.
Because it is a battle. It's an ongoing battle. I keep thinking, is there a better metaphor? And of course, probably right after we tape this, I'll be contacting Tammy and going, I found a better metaphor for it. But up until then, it works, and it works well. Because you can think of it in terms of strategies. It also fits really well and dovetails with the flow state, The Art of Impossible, the Stephen Kotler book, kind of mapping out our recipe for that. So this actually, I would say, almost read this one first and then read the Stephen Kotler book. And I read this a long time ago, and I must have been, because I didn't remember, it was like I never read it before. And the guy who wrote the foreword, Robert McKee, and he said, he probably asked me to do this because I needed it. He said he wrote it for me, is what he says. And as I'm going through it, I'm thinking, this is the perfect time for me to be rereading this. And so, kind of serendipitously picking it up and saying, okay, this is the next book I'm going to review with Tammy. And it's like, this is the perfect book for right now, because I've got a lot of stuff on my plate. I'm doing a lot of different things, and I'm not just doing the coaching and the training and the workshops. I'm also now blending in the artwork. And so I'm having this thing of like, the writing is fun, but the artwork is really fun. So I've been asking myself lately, am I procrastinating on the writing stuff by doing the artwork stuff that I love? And because now that is a priority and I'm using it, it's like, oh my gosh, have I put in my procrastination thing, my go-to procrastination thing, up front in such a way that it's a more poisonous procrastination thing. I mean, so my head is very full right now, from reading this, and so I'm doing a lot of laughing at myself as I'm reading. I'm like, oh God, no. So my advice is just power through the first part, okay? Because what he's
opens
doing,
up wounds.
yeah,
Like, no, that's me. No, I've been hiding that from myself for such a long time.
I know. And so it's like power through the first part, and just, you know, grit your teeth and get through it. And then the second part is about the combating the resistance. It's like, you know, what to do with it, you know, how do you do that? And like the one quote I like, it's one thing to study war, it's another to live a warrior's life. And it really resonates with me because I'm always telling people, claim it, claim who you are, you know, stop apologizing for who you are. And, you know, it's just that is a red thread that runs through everything, my coaching, the consulting, all of it. And so I changed it a little bit when I did the written book review for this. And it's, you know, it's one thing to study a creative life. It's another thing to live a creative life. And all of us who are entrepreneurs or we're building anything that we're building, it is the creative warrior, you know, because we have to fight against people saying, you know, people, it's one of the parts of resistance that I don't particularly suffer from. Because if somebody, it actually gives me, it actually fuels me. Other people, it brings them to their knees. Of people saying, you know, oh, that's already been done. You know, who are you to do that? You know, so stuff like that, I don't happen to suffer from, but I know a lot of people who do. But it's still there and it's constant. It's constant, you know, the way that the world seems to push back at us as we're trying to do our amazing stuff. And so if we choose the life, you know, it's because we have to choose it. And so this is kind of what he speaks about. And then that's when he gets into the third part of beyond resistance. And that part of it is about the choosing it, but really choosing it, you know,
Embracing it all and what comes with
embracing
it,
the whole
including
thing.
the resistance.
But and mostly, and he talks about invoking the muse, and different people call it different things. You know, the you know, the creative spirit, the genius, God. You know, there's any number of things that people use that label for. And so, and this is where it gets into crossover and overlap with the this Stephen Kotler book, The Art of Impossible, and being in flow. And so it's, you know, how do we engineer our lives and strategize to make sure we can tap into that, you know, to our creative states, and then just don't deviate. And so it's like the ones that say that somebody has a secret of you know, for writers. Now a lot of times he'll be speaking about writers, but it's everybody. And that's another thing that I always speak about, that everybody's creative. And I know that creative, you know, humans are creative animals. So anything that we're doing, we just have to be a warrior about it. And I do like that word, because a lot of times people think that, you know, the warriors kill, and I'm like, not always. You know, warriors protect, warriors build, you know, warriors like ninjas. I did not know that in the beginning ninjas were engineers. You couldn't be a ninja without being an engineer. Now, don't ask me where I've read that. But I was studying something and I came across it and I was like, what? I was like, that's amazing. That's an amazing thing. And so there's this, or has been, you know, that warriors are, you know, they are tearing things apart and the destructiveness. But it's not that. It's one of those situations of both and. But we do have to be the protectors of ourselves and the protectors of our creative spirits. and ferocious at times. It's like, for example, saying no. That's part of the warrior. Carving out time for ourselves, part of being the warrior. And choosing to do something that people want us to do, and choosing the time to be in a creative state and have more stillness, and choose to build a strategy around that, which means not the choice of just choosing it, but the choice of what we're saying no to, and putting barriers and boundaries around what we do. And so it's great. The book is great for that. Again, the first part of it, you just have to because he just strips you back. You can't, there's no, you got to go through it. You got to go through it. And then when you get into the second and third parts, by the time you come out the end, you're like, yes, yes, yes.
But what are you yes for? So I can only imagine people listening to this would be like, okay, cool, art, creative, cool. What does that even mean to me? They don't understand the full impact of that. So what's the so what? Once you're in that state, what does that mean for someone if they're looking for their greater calling, or they want to make an impact? Yeah. Can you explain more about the,
well,
let's, what does it mean?
let's take, you can take any profession, or I would say any profession, any calling, like you say, if somebody, I'm going to keep coming up with engineering with it, because I've coached and advised so many engineers, but there's anybody who's building a business, or they're involved in a startup, or they're a founder. I mean, there's so many levels of creativity with that. You're creating something. And so to be able to stand in the doubt, and to be able to, build the muscles around, again, saying no. How do you make your decisions? What are your visions based on? What are your values based on? And if your values are based in one thing, and it's all, it's essentially knowing that you can, stripping everything back and taking a good look, are you walking the talk almost? Because we can say we're doing this, these amazing things, and yet we still can't say no to things. We still can't carve out time for ourselves. And we still are chasing almost on a hamster wheel to please other people. Whereas the full-on creative self, you just go. You don't listen to other people. You don't listen to the naysayers. I had a conversation just yesterday with somebody about the way somebody was building their community and giving gratitude. I think I sent you a link to this, and about how they mentioned and tagged 20 of their best supporters and followers on whatever they were doing. And the person I was talking to was saying, oh, he's playing the numbers game. He's playing this. And I was like, but wait, he's acknowledging, so it's like there are going to be people that see what we're doing, and they put a meaning on it, or their perception or their spin on it. Whereas if we hear people speaking like that and say, well, I'm doing the same thing, or I do it different, and here's why I do it, so that there's judgment constantly, especially with the internet. So it's like, how do we stand in the force of that tsunami of judgment? And so we better be pretty secure in ourselves to be able to deal with that. But it's like, if we are constantly battling the resistance within ourselves, it makes it difficult to withstand the onslaught of judgment from the outside. And so this is what I was noticing, and from myself, I'm pretty good at the onslaught from the outside. That doesn't really disturb me much. for a number of different reasons. I won't, I could or could not go into. But I mean, it's something that I keep repeating. It's like the way I was raised and the way I'm hardwired, and neurodivergence definitely plays a part in that, because I don't care. And, but it's the neurodivergence for me is like I don't care so much that's almost part of the resistance to not make the effort to do some certain things. So these are the areas that I have to watch. If, for example, I don't care what people think, and it's like I don't care, it's like I should be doing that, but I really don't care. It's like, okay. And so this is a lot of stuff in here made me look at that and okay, well, what would make me care, and sit down and write these. I've got a list with all these articles that I should be writing and posting. Meh. Doing research on something else is more interesting. So it does. Now he doesn't. It's one of the few things that I have not a bone to pick with him, but I feel like he's mostly talking to neurotypicals. I don't know, but there's not word one. Now, granted, it was written in this particular one. It was written in 2002, and I mean, come on, 20 years. I mean, everything is so exponentially fast that 20 years is a long time for things to evolve. So, and they've only just in the last couple of years really started talking about neurodivergence. So of course it's not going to be in this book. So
but you
Steven,
speculate that it might actually be written for some neurodivergent people.
Right, but it is very directive, and there are some people who can't. Okay, this is the thing that, they can't do some of the things he's doing in the way that he's being directive. So it comes across kind of being judgmental just in the wording. Plus, he just, there's a lot of he, and not in a laughing way. So, it's very gendered. He throws every once in a while, there's a perfunctory she thrown into it because it's not homogeneously he, but it might as well be. So this kind of thing, and you could tell the times have changed. And somebody writing a book right now, their editor would be like, "Hey,
put some persons in there, they."
But in other aspects, this is the kind of book that stands the test of time. In what he's talking about and how he's talking about, and getting us to look at ourselves and look deep. Painfully deep, and yeah.
How's it different to other books then? Like, why is this one that you highly rate versus another that's quite similar? Because what I find is that books, they repeat similar themes just in a different way.
Right. This one is like having a again, the war of art. It's like having the drill instructor that you didn't know you needed. There's he's not insulting by any stretch of the imagination, but it's like, direct. It's a fairly thin book. There are, some pages where it's just like this.
Yeah, like half the pages.
Right. So, and some of them, are shorter, but they're, it's not long like this one, it's just this.
A short paragraph, yeah.
Right. So it's almost like, a devotional for creativity and resistance, that it's like, if you need a kick in the ass, pick it up. It's fairly concise, whereas other people would take one section out of it and just and write an entire chapter on two of his paragraphs. So it's completely stripped back, which is what Steven Pressfield does really well.
If you can do it in fewer words and still get the message across, that's an art.
Right. And so he's direct, he goes right in. There's no, padding around it, let's
Does
say.
that mean then you need to have some awareness and understanding of these different principles, like resistance and overcoming your mind, fear, to be able to digest it? Or if you were completely new to
Mhm,
reading any personal development book,
mhm.
would you be able to read it and go, oh, I understand?
I think if you when and again, in the era that we're in, I think like everybody has done some kind of introspection. It's just in our collective face a lot right now. So I imagine when it first came out, people were like, "What?" And it felt like being punched in the face, as I'm guessing, because they weren't, who talks like this, right? Um, I like it because it is very direct, and so I know what he's talking about, and so it's a good question what you're asking. I imagine that that's part of I think why it could be very effective if people are used to just hearing the sugar coating of things and and it's like no, he's direct. It is like the drill sergeant for your creativity.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think it can be very effective. Now, again, please push past the first part. It's the first part. If you're not used to, because it's one right after the other of the different types of resistance that
Well, let's talk about it. Let's dive into the resistance. So then people are prepared, let's say, or a bit self-aware of what they're going to get themselves into. So they are committed to push through it and get to
yeah,
the juicy stuff.
yeah. I don't want to scare everybody, and and because it's definitely um it's like all the things, and the one that really got me was like, oh, are you watching all this Netflix first? And I was just like, what? Who? Is there a camera? Does he have a camera in my
You
house?
see me? Oh no. Was Netflix around
I
then?
feel so seen, but not in the ways I want to be. And um, the and again, here's good news, bad news. I don't know what the good news is, but the resistance is insidious, and no matter what level we're on, there's always going to be resistance. We're always going to have things that we come up against, and so it's a really good um, now's the time, right, to build the muscles because it's never going to go away. And I think this is where people get caught up is like, I think they want a one and done. They want to take the
Mm,
magic pill.
yeah, or they push through a little bit of it
Right.
and then get so tired that they give up. So they may
Right.
even try a little, but then
Right.
they get to the resistance again and they just are not ready to take that next push.
Right. But also the thing of just try it because it might not be the thing for you, but you don't know
Yeah,
unless you try.
of course.
Like for example, doing the podcast, when I started doing the podcast with Alex, and then I recognized pretty immediately that editing was not my thing. And, and so I'm not going to push and push and push to make sure that it's not my thing. No, I know it's not my thing. So I'm better at other things. And but it's if your muscles for the resistance and your boundaries, and if you can build them, so this book will help you do that because the first thing is about um, labeling labeling them and the awareness around it, and sort of like this with the Stephen Kotler book, the awareness is the first part of anything,
Yeah.
because we can't deal with it if we're not aware of it. And it's like my mother would say, languaging things is so powerful, and as soon as we put language on it, then it's tangible because the resistance likes hiding in the shadows.
Mm-hmm.
And when we can say, okay, I know why I'm not doing my invoices because I'm doing this and not, you go, ha ha ha, okay, screw you. I need to do this. So, to do them, I'm now going to push past resistance and say, okay, every Tuesday morning at 10 o'clock, I'm working on it. Even if I just get 2 sentences out, even if I just look up something, it takes me an hour to do it. At least at 10 o'clock on Tuesday, I'm doing my invoices. So this is the deals. This is part of the thing of the drill sergeant thing. It's like, no, this is
Building
what
up your discipline.
Right,
Get it done.
right. Now, this is the hard part for neurodivergence. It's very, very difficult to be systematic like that. Very difficult. And so it's like, okay, but what can I do? So this is what I've been thinking about this week, after picking this up and reviewing it again. And I'm like, all right, yeah, I do struggle in certain areas like that, because everything I do is not random, but and I get my stuff done, some stuff more than others, and some stuff are definitely avoided because I have to sit in a chair. So it's like, okay, how would that work? Do I, because I have a piece of wood, a big piece of wood that I put on the handlebars of the treadmill. It's like, okay, can I put my computer on that? Well, the answer is yes. And and do some of the invoice work while I'm walking, for example. So it's just trying to find a way to work around certain types of resistance, because I don't want to use the ADD and the certain, the dyslexia and the certain things as a crutch. Go, yeah, well, I can't do that because of this. I don't want to
justify it.
Right. So this is part of the resistance, because he talks about justifying. It's one of the things, So it's like, and it's like but what he also says is like, resistance is impersonal. It doesn't care. It's not out to get you. It just is, it's not out to get you personally. It doesn't know who you are, and it doesn't care. It's a force of nature, and it acts objectively. It visits everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And it's universal. He says it plays for keeps because it wants you to stop doing what you're doing. So, and it never sleeps. And these things but I imagine it was, the first part for some people would be like, God, why even bother? Why try?
Yeah, it seems like a mammoth task to overcome.
And it's fueled by fear. Now, this is the part for me, in being neurodivergent, mine isn't. It's hard for me to focus. It's hard for me because I'm pretty fearless, and I do stuff because it's dangerous or because it's foolish, because
that's a stupid thing to do. I'll do it.
Right, that's impossible. I'll try. This is actually part of my fuel. And so then I start thinking, it's like, okay, if I'm fueled by fear in a good way, in a positive way, how can I engineer it, the stuff that I'm resistant to maybe have that be an instigator to do it. And of course, with the ADD thing, I have to break things into chunks, which makes it difficult. Certain things like that. It's like for example, paying invoices is very difficult because I have to, in paperwork and administrative stuff, because I have to sit in a chair, and it's linear, which is agonizing. And so it's easy to procrastinate with that stuff. And it's like, if I get up out of the chair, and then it's like, I'm supposed to be working, and all of a sudden I notice I'm upstairs, arranging my socks by color and season. I'm like, what? How did I get up here? Kind of a thing. But I know I'm not the only one. But it's like, why are we doing it? Is important to understand. My things happen to be, the neurodivergence thing, and it's hard for me to maintain focus for things that aren't interesting. And people on the spectrum are the same way. It's the things that are interesting, we can drop into flow state almost immediately. But the other things, if it's boring, it has nothing to do with other people which is, that's what I was saying. I personally don't suffer from that thing, that type of thing. Like the writing thing. If I put this out, are people going to like it? I mean, like, that doesn't even occur to me. And it has nothing to do with ego of like, my stuff is so great, I don't care. It has nothing to do with that either. So, because he talks in here about ego, letting go of ego as well. And he says resistance is most powerful at the finish line. Now that I find interesting also, because I don't particularly suffer with that one, but I know a lot of people that do. So the other thing that's cool about this, reading this book again, it's like, oh, hi, kitty.
She's off.
You have a ginger kitty to match you.
I do, exactly.
That's pretty adorable.
She's cute. Oh, wait, it's me in a cat.
But in reading it again, I thought, oh my gosh, I'm so happy that I picked this up as the next book. He's like, oh gosh, so many people that I've been talking with and coaching, they're suffering from these things. So this is actually gives me something to say. Okay, you need to read this or listen to it on audio, because I see a lot of suffering around this stuff. Yeah, and then there's a lot of people then heap shame and guilt on themselves because of the resistance, which is another thing I don't really suffer on. Now I do go, what is, why can't you do your invoices? What is the matter? But I don't continually bash myself. I'm aware of it, but it doesn't, again, bring me to my knees, where I see it happen with a lot of people. So in that respect, I'm like, oh, thank God I'm neurodivergent. In my particular neurodivergent cocktail, right? Yeah, there's so much that in the first part, in terms of awareness of how we are, how the resistance manifests is super important if you're willing to just look at it. So I would say take a deep breath, meditate, close the book, remeditate, to be able to, I want to say, go the depths, and you'll get so much out of it. Because if we name it and pull it into the light, it has less power. But there's certain things, and pay attention to, like, mark the pages. Yeah, I suffer with that one. No, I don't really suffer from that one. The one about it's you because there's a lot of people who get to the finish line of something and then they self-sabotage. And so
perfectionists do that. They work on something to their really high standards, the perfect standard,
right,
their excellence, and it's good enough to be out there, but something's not quite right, so they just go, well, it's done, right, that's it, I give up on it, and no one ever sees it. Right. It's like, wow, that's actually like amazing to a lot of people, but there's just one thing that's not quite right, so they just won't put it out there. That's self-sabotaging.
Right. And so I've been asking myself, going through all of these, I've been doing a lot of thinking this last 2 weeks in terms of, and I thought I would blaze through. I was like, oh, it's short, I have to admit, I'm like, well, I'm gonna choose a small book. And I was like, oh my God, boy, did that backfire.
Small, but makes you stop.
Oh my God, yes. I could like read one of them and go, because then I look at all the things and my patterns and like, okay, is it really like that? Is it, so I'm in like full analytical mode of, reanalyzing what are my process with that, and like, how is that connected to that, and is that a symptom or a cause, because it's not clear, a lot of the things in our behaviors. And of course, being a behavioral scientist, I mean, this stuff is like crack for me. So, and which can become procrastination. And, like, but it's like, they're saying there's another one, resistance recruits allies. And so, who are we pulling into our orbit that reaffirms the lies that we want to tell ourselves? And I don't say lies because it's that part of it sounds kind of negative, but the stories that we're telling ourselves and that we want to believe. So who are we pulling into our orbit, or what are we pulling
to
into our orbit?
justify the behavior.
Right.
I see this with many groups of people where
Right.
they know their problem, and sometimes it tends to be, and I hear this a lot, it's about their health. They think that they are like overweight, let's say, but what they tend to do is they keep people in their circle that are just like them to justify that it's okay to behave a certain way. And then they stay trapped in that way of thinking and being. And they do little to change it, because it's really hard to then dive into the self-awareness, like, why am I doing this?
Right. And you can also say, like, people who manage leaders and managers who are very critical, or and they're abusive. They can be abusive, and the management style, leadership style is like, no, we have to be this way. But if they're surrounded, and they surround themselves with other people that are doing the same kind of negative leadership and management practices, then they don't have to look at themselves. Yeah. And instead of doing the difficult thing of just stretching and growing and being the kind of leader or manager that requires being in the unknown and doing something different, or following their heart, because does it feel good? No, it doesn't. That kind of leadership doesn't feel good, but everybody else is doing it. There's books being written and sold, and just do it, go, do it. And the pressure from it, the hustle culture is another one. And so it's like, is it a good way? Marketing, it touches everything. Again, then this taps into the mimetic behavior of Luke Burgess' book. And the it's all connected. And but we can tell ourselves that no, this is fine, because it's just easier. It's like the water will go in the path of least resistance. And this is the part of the wording, the word choice of being a warrior. It's not easy. When you think of the Navy SEALs, they're like the best at being uncomfortable. They pride themselves on being the best at being uncomfortable, because everybody else will be like, I don't want to sit in the cold water, and so they're really good at it. And so it's like, okay, what is the discomfort of doing what we need to do? And can we be good at the discomfort of doing what it takes to produce or advance in the areas that we want to advance in, and be good at our skill, our particular skill of what we do. And that is in the creativity. When I use creativity, and he says, he's talking about artists and writers and blah, 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 but it's everything, the art of leadership, that's a thing. So it's like, what does it take to be good at that? What does it take to be good at, the skill we were born to do, the thing, not the skill, but the calling. So what parts of discomfort come with that? Of course, the next thing is like, can we outsource the things that are uncomfortable? And
hey, that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's like, I don't like it, I'm not willing to change it, but I'm so focused on where I'm going. Maybe I need the skills to come in and do it. So I have the habit of just bypassing my reasons why. Like, I don't want to sit there and think, oh, this is the reason. I'm like, I got to move forward. At my detriment, it's an opportunity for me to listen and learn. So yeah, I have that with, I'll just outsource. I just jump to that part, just get it done, move forward. Pros and cons to it.
And if we can be aware of it, and we know why we're doing it, it's like, when I was going through different university classes, there's I took accounting and I took all these things because I knew later on I would be hiring somebody. I knew I didn't want to become an accountant, and I didn't want to become an economist, but I wanted to know. I wanted to know that if I was in a position where I had to hire somebody or talk to somebody, and outsourcing wasn't a thing back then. But we have these tools and opportunities at our fingertips that are extraordinary, that can help us do what we want to do better than if we were doing it. Because trust me, me doing my own accounting, yeah, it's probably not a good idea, because I'm going to miss something, because I'm horribly numerically dyslexic. I forget the word for that. And yeah, it's not the best thing for me to be doing. And so but if we know that about ourselves, and that we do have the tools at our fingertips these days, to be able to make the decision, okay, is that something I want to do or not? Again, it's making the choices, saying, no, I think I need to find somebody else. The editing, I'm not going to be the best editor because I don't like it. I could do it if I have to, but that's a waste of my time and
your energy as well. The passion that you put in, your passion that you would put into other areas.
That's the thing.
You'll be just like diminishing that if you forced yourself to do something that you really did enjoy, or that the skills just weren't there.
Right. And I'm not the best at it. So it's like, why not have somebody who's better than me? I don't have an ego attached to it. Because I should, like,
but it's better that you go through that process and you're aware of it to find someone than just go, no, I just don't like doing the accounts, and leaving it there or avoiding it, not telling yourself that this is a problem. That's actually one of the key reasons why business owners fail after 3 years. Usually it's cash flow. And so a lot of people, they just don't like the numbers. And okay, fair enough. That's just not the way that you are. No problem. And I think a lot of entrepreneurs are creative naturally, and numbers is their biggest problem, but they avoid it. And they jump from project to project to project because they say, oh, well, it's failing. They had that optimism, that energy to keep, focus on the task at hand. But when it doesn't follow through, they jump to the next project. But really what it is that they're not having that conversation of, I actually just don't know what the numbers mean. I don't know how to make that profitable. I don't know how to market that, whatever it is. And it's say, well, maybe you need to learn. If you need to learn, okay, go down that route. If not, and it's just something that crushes your soul, then who is the person you need to work with to do it for you? So then you can advance to the future you're looking to achieve.
Exactly. It's like right now I've got this like completely steep learning curve with NFTs, Web3, community, using NFTs with community and tokens, and and it's like, first in my head, I have to build the files that I can put the information in. And I'm like, I don't, what am I looking at here? So I'm trying to discern that. And so what I'm doing is flinging myself into conversations and in these communities and go, okay, like, and looking around and going, what am I doing? But in a situation like that, because I like learning by doing, and it's like, you have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. And so that is kind of my flavor of the Navy SEAL discomfort thing. So it doesn't, I actually actively seek it out. And it's like, I want to know about this, and I don't know anything about it. And because I'm an artist, it's like, yes, I want to know about, everything around the creating of NFTs. I don't just want to get on the platform and put my artwork on there without knowing all the stuff around it, because how would I make decisions? Because it's like the Wild West out there right now. And so how would you know you're making a good decision if you just put it out there? That's like, just opening the door and you're in the other room, but you still don't know how the weather is or something. I need to come up with a good metaphor for that. But the learning about it is, and I don't have to know everything, but I want to know something about it. I want to know where the edges are and the parameters are. But I do have to be careful, and I am very careful because I know it's an area of procrastination, possible procrastination, all the rabbit holes around it. It's like, oh, that looks interesting. Wait, that looks interesting. So, yeah, I have to be careful with it, but I know it's part of my trajectory of where I'm going. So it is connected and it's important. It's not some completely random thing about, tell you what, somebody sent me a pony, this tiny pony playing in the snow. And I was like, oh, little horses. I want a little horse, and spend hours and hours looking at like miniature horses, because miniature horses are different than little ponies. I won't go into it, but I'm not going to go off on that rabbit hole because I know what that's going to do to me.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with my trajectory. Enjoyable as it might be, I might save that like right before I go to bed or something when I'm just like looking at stuff, but not during the day. That's forbidden. That's part of my thing. It's like I have parameters of things. So this is the making friends with the awareness. It's an interesting making friends with.
Well, if you're making friends with it, it feels quite accepting. There's like
the
judgment.
non-judgmentalness of the patterns that we have. And so it's like Steven Pressfield can be the drill instructor. And then there's parts of us that can be like, it's okay. It's okay. We see that we do that. It's okay. Now, how do we want it to be? This is, but like he speaks about procrastination. The pernicious aspect of procrastination is that it can become a habit. And I understand that. And so that part is very, very difficult. And that's what I was trying to think about, is like, okay, what part of what I do is part of the ADD and the being on the spectrum, and what part of it is really procrastination, which is hard to tell. It's very, very difficult to tell that. So I'll be doing some further thinking on it. But there, yeah, and so the awareness of what we're doing and being as non-judgmental as possible in coming up with a new strategy but again, it's it's like a muscle. You can't look at, your set of weights over in the corner and think about lifting them, and then suddenly you have muscles, and it doesn't work that way. And this stuff is the same way. Self-development is the same way.
This book reminds me of Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway.
Yes, it's one of the ones I was thinking, well, should I do this one next?
Yeah, because it sounds very similar. It's like recognizing the fear. And for me, it was like a physiological like awareness of like, oh my God, my palms are sweating. And I could feel that. And it's like, what's going on right now? What's happening to me? Oh, I'm fearing this moment. Because sometimes I have to be in the moment to know it's the thing that I don't like. A bit like you, I would just take it on and just go, all right, let's go for it. And in the moment, I'm like, my body's reacting, especially with, and still to this day, if I'm doing like a networking group and I'm meeting other people, you have your 60 seconds to say who you are, what you're about, what it is that you're looking for. Great structure. And you've got 60 seconds, and I'm a bit of a waffler. So it's like, 60 seconds, don't do this to me. So I have to be really concise with my thoughts. And so I have to plan it sometimes rather than free flow. But in the moment, my heart starts to like pound, especially if I'm, if I know the order that it's going in. So if I know I'm 10th in the queue, the heartbeat gets harder and faster by the 9th person. But if I didn't know it's coming, I still feel awkward and I still feel the sweaty palms. But I don't know when it's coming. And so when they say my name, it's like, okay, in the moment, and I can do it then.
I totally agree with you. I'm the same way. It's the waiting.
Anticipation.
Yeah, the anticipation of it. So the fear of the fear.
Yeah. But I didn't know this until I went through that book and I recognized it. But I suppose with this book, it's different in that there's a lot of thoughts and patterns that you recognize in maybe afterwards rather than in the moment. So when you were talking, I was thinking about a resistance that I had, and I love this. It just stays firmly in my mind. And I was with my business coach. I recommend working with coaches if you're trying to advance in somewhere. And if you're not willing to advance, that's fine. Stay mediocre. That's just where you're at. It's not a problem. But when you are looking to advance, get a coach, because they would just say something and you're just like, oh my God, you did that. And this is the moment. And so I was starting my business, growing it and building my visibility. And I was suffering with imposter syndrome, although I thought I wasn't. I thought, no, I've got this, I can, and I will. That's my attitude. But this was the little lie in my mind that I wanted to bury very deep. And it came to LinkedIn, and she was like, well, a lot of your connections are on LinkedIn, you know, and you've got clients on LinkedIn. So why are you not putting yourself out there? And I had all the reasons. I justified it. And she was like, oh, okay, that doesn't sound like that's the truth. And she was like, so what is really going on? And as soon as she said that, I was like, oh my God, I'm exposed like a rabbit in the headlights. And I was like, oh, no. It's because I don't want them to think that I am a failure, that I'm rebranding myself. I'm an imposter. Like, how can this Tammy go from being this to now that? And it just came out my mouth, and she was like, and there you go. What are you going to do about it? And I was like, oh my God, no, because I was in the moment, right? And it's like, well, I recognize it. And of course I want to move forward. And she's asking now, what do I need to do? And it's like, I just need to post. I just have to post. I have to get beyond this. And the words came out. And I knew that's the action I had to take. So it was just, it was happening before me. And as soon as we finished that call, the first thing I did was write a post. I don't know what it's about. I should go hunt for it, actually. It would be quite interesting to see what it was. But I took that step, and I still had those fears. I felt it, but I was doing it anyway. And as a result, I taught myself to be creative, because there's different ways of communication when you're putting it on like a social media platform versus, you know, talking it through with someone, which I'm far more familiar and comfortable with, because I can explain myself better. When it comes to written form, short text, that's different. So what am I trying to do? So I learned the arts of communication in different ways for different people, for me, for my message, and so on. So it was a creative act as a result of getting through that moment of fear and resistance.
Exactly. I love that story, because it completely showcases exactly what he's talking about with this. And you also put your finger on it, that it's like, and this is the future, is everybody having a coach for something in particular at any given point in their lives. And again, this is the thing that I'm lucky with my mom. It's, you know, they didn't call it a coaching, but it was, she would, you know, they would call it therapy, but she would say, pick different people, you know, a therapist or a mentor, and speak with them at different phases that you're going through. So she kind of taught me how to form my own coaching practice, not practice, but you know, it's like I'm doing it. Of course, now I am, but no, how to build your own, you know, orbit of support system of coaches. And it's incredibly valuable, because they change, and whatever we're doing, you might need a particular coach for this phase of something you're going through, or something that you're struggling with, or that you really want to push forward or achieve. And you wouldn't choose the same coach for something else. And so to be able to, you know, but again, it's that awareness thing of, what do I need? And so that's part of the, I don't want to say the self-help thing that's coming out, because there's, you know, just tons of self-help books, and they're like, just do it, but they don't say really how. And so but again, with coaches, it's like, this is the answer in the future of having a number of people.
But it's funny that coaches and courses that allow you to advance is also a big resistance. There's loads of clients that I get when we're trying to work out, are we right for each other? They have all the reasons not to do it. And I find that there's certain topics in life that we can find reasons not to do, yet they are the single biggest things that will advance us and make us just like self-actualize, to just transcend into our higher power, our higher calling. Yeah, I just find the whole dynamics of overcoming our mind quite complex and beautiful at the same time, because
Right.
once you've got some principles and you're starting to just chip away at it, it uncovers so much more. And like, I'm not a finished article, absolutely not.
No.
I want to do ayahuasca because I want to tap into other parts of my mind that I find difficult to find with this, you know, with the abilities I have right now. And so using a tea that will allow me to tap into more of my mind, I find that absolutely fascinating. That will teach me so much. But would I be thinking of doing that sort of thing 10 years ago? Hell no, that's terrifying. I just needed to chip away at the small things. And for me, it started with my health. I had to start there. And I think a lot of people start with their health.
Yeah.
And once they've realized that they can overcome their excuses and battles, that's when they can start to take on the next element of their life. And it might be their career. It then might go into their relationships. It's a nice evolution, but you just got to take that leap of faith and begin.
Right. No, it's, and again, it's some people, I imagine, would read this book and it would be very threatening to their identity.
Oh, yeah.
And because everything starts with the identity. What identity have we built around? Because of the ego and the identity are the, you know, fast friends. And and is it, you know, what is that built on? And what is that, you know, and I think of it in terms of a Jenga game, you know, the wooden pieces that you pull out, and is it still standing, and what can you pull out, and then you place them on top. And so that tends to be a very unstable structure. And I think of in terms of building our sense of identity broad and low, so that we can withstand a hit. If something, you know, attacks one part of our identity, the whole thing isn't going to come crashing down. And this is kind of how I was raised, without, you know, speaking in those terms. This is my metaphor now that I use to explain it. But it's, you know, again, the muscles of, you know, emotional intelligence, that it's, you know, what is our identity built on? And that we, you know, to be resilient and to be, you know, build the structure in such a stable way. It's the exact same concept when I'm coaching people with startups or a small business, or when they're starting something, is that build it so it can take a hit. And it's no different in how we navigate life and how we look at our identity. If we can't take a hit with a negative comment on a post that we do, it's like, ooh, there's some work to be done there.
Do you have a book that you'd recommend that focuses on that on its own? So around like the ego, the identity, and resilience. What is that book called?
That is by I told you I'm having trouble with names this last week. Ryan, and it's called The Ego is the Enemy.
Can we do that in our next book review?
Why not? That's a good one. That's a good one.
I've always wanted to dive into ego. What does that mean? What does it look like?
This one's powerful.
Okay, great. That has
Ryan
to be
Holiday.
The next one.
Ryan Holiday. Yeah. I actually met him. Didn't met him at a conference, a Tim Ferriss conference, in 2008. No, 2000 had to be 2011, 2010, 12. Yeah, didn't talk to him briefly, but he's an amazing guy. I pay attention to what he writes. Well, both of them are amazing, but Ryan Holiday, I really love the way he writes, and I like just the way his brain works. And but that book, The Ego is the Enemy, is really good. Really, really good.
Awesome. So let's end on our big question. Our big yellow question. What would the world look like if they read this book, The War of Art?
It's funny because I see a pattern now. All my answers are starting to look the same on this question. I think people would, like, everybody who we would interact with would have a better understanding of themselves, and they would be on the path of building those muscles of the awareness and interact in such a way that, you know, there just would be a higher level of creativity. You know, it would be phenomenal, because again, that whole thing of it starts with self in terms of management and leadership, and so it would touch everything if everybody read this. Yeah, I know this is going to start sounding like a broken record, but I mean, again, the books that I'm picking to discuss, they do kind of tend to have that in common, that it's like, wow, if everybody read it, that would be
I wonder the next book review, if everyone read the book about the ego, what would happen? The world will melt down, first of all.
Yeah, and you know,
and then it will rebuild.
Well, things would be designed in a different way. Things would be, you know, the way people would treat each other would be very different, because, you know, it's like my mom said, you know, anytime we're in any social situation, we're always just working out our childhood shit on each other. And
oh my God, that's so true.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. And I have that in my head no matter what I'm doing. I have it in my head all the time. So this is one of the things, that is one of the reasons, that phrase right there is one of the reasons where I don't take things personally. I can look at like comments that people make, and I'll be like, wow, somebody needs to look at their childhood shit. And then other people are just, when it's directed at me or something, I'm just like, yeah, okay, you got some stuff to work out. I understand, you know, that comment, you know, fair enough, maybe, you know, I'm able to look at it objectively.
Welcome to Go to Yellow. Subscribe to our channel to learn how to redefine success and restore life balance. If you like this video, please give it a like, leave a comment below. But remember to turn off the notifications, because we want you to live your life and not to be controlled by the ping. May your life be yellow.